Welcome to PlayPianoTODAY.com. Today we're looking at a fantastic concept on the keyboard called straddles. Today we're going to talk about a fantastic concept called straddles. Straddles are a real simple technique to get a lot of sound out of very simple triads. Let's take a look. If you've gone through the original course titled Pattern, Piano, and Keyboard, as found at PlayPianoTODAY.com, you know that triads, or three-note chords, can be major or they can be minor. In this case, I'm showing you a G major triad or a G minor triad. Let's look at the G major triad for a moment, consisting of the root, the third, and the fifth. Those notes for G major are G, B, and D. Pretty simple, huh? This is called root position because the root, like a tree's roots, are down on the bottom, right? Unless you're on the other side of the planet, then the roots are also on the bottom, which is a paradox. So this is a G major triad in root position because the root is on the bottom. What if we took that root and put it up here on top? You still have G, B, and D. But now this is called first inversion. We're inverting the chord. It's the same notes, but just in a different position. Now, if we take the third, put it up on top, you still have G, B, and D. So you still have a G major triad, or three-note chord, but now it's in second inversion. Root position, first inversion, second inversion. What happens if we kick it up one more time and take that fifth, that D, and put it up on top? Even though I'm an octave higher than originally, the root is still on the bottom, right? So this is still in root position. So I could play that G major triad anywhere on the piano. As long as the G was on the bottom, it's in root position. As long as the B is on the bottom, first inversion. As long as the D is on the bottom, second inversion. So we're taking that G major triad and simply inverting it. Instantly you're moving around on the keyboard. It's a very simple, pretty basic technique that you learn right out of the gate when you're taking piano lessons. You can do the exact same thing with a G minor triad. In fact, kind of a long-term thought, you can do this with any chord at all. You can invert it. But let's look at a G minor triad. Now we have G, the third, which is lowered, which constitutes a minor triad, right? So you have a B flat and a D. G, B flat, and D. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, back to root position. Okay, so I'm just inverting now that G minor triad. Now remember, if this is all new information to you, make sure you go through Pattern, Piano, and Keyboard, because we're going to use a lot of these simple concepts and put them together with a lot of other information and come up with some fantastic complex music. Just for the sake of being really clear, let's do some more inversions. We're not yet to the straddle technique, but we're getting there. This time we're going to use C major in root position to start with, right? C, E, and G, and C is the root, and it's on the bottom, so you call that root position. Okay, so now take that C, flip it up on top. It's called first inversion. Still C, E, and G, so you still have a C major triad. Same exact chord, but now it's in first inversion. Do it again. Take the E, flip it up on top. Now you have C, E, and G, so you still have a C major triad, but now it's in second inversion. Guess what? Take the G and put it up on top, and you are back to root position. Why? Because the root is on the bottom, right? Even though it's way up here, it's still root position. Anytime the root of the chord is on the bottom, you call that root position. So now you can start taking that C major triad, invert it up and down the keyboard. In fact, I hope you're doing that as you're watching this. Get your hands moving. You almost have to get your hands to move kind of in a tarantula sort of movement. Kind of spooky. But see, that movement has to become really fluid over any chord. Here it is over D. We're not yet straddling, but we're simply inverting chords. Here's C minor. Look at that tarantula jumping around. But this is a very necessary movement for your hands. Now, If you don't know all these chords like the back of your hand, which is really important, or rather the back of my hand as you're watching all these videos, if you don't know these chords that well, make sure you go through Pattern Piano and Keyboard at PlayPianoTODAY.com. When you go through Pattern Piano and Keyboard, the first thing you'll learn is the patterns of music theory. Instead of learning lists and lists of chords and scales and so forth, the things that make people quit, I'm going to instead teach you the simple patterns of music theory. And there's just a couple of them for the chords. And once you learn those simple patterns, you can play them anywhere on the keyboard and come up with these fantastic chords and scales and all the components of music theory quickly so you can get right to the music. Make sure you go through that course. Now, to create straddles out of inversions, it's very simple. You simply leave out whatever note is in the middle. And I don't want you to think technically at this point. If you can do this, if you've got your hands, if you've got your tarantulas trained and able to do this, you can do the straddle technique. You just simply leave out whatever note is in the middle. Okay, so in root position, the middle note is here, right? Okay, let's go to first inversion. Normally it would be here, but if we're going to use the straddle technique, we're going to leave out the middle note. So these are the outside notes now. Here's the middle note, right? I'm really stating the obvious. Here's second inversion. Which note is in the middle? Everybody knows. This one is now in the middle, okay? And back to root position. Now this guy's in the middle, so we'll leave it out. So now I'm going to do the same thing, always leaving out the middle note. Watch this. Now I'm only playing two notes at once, right? This is not algebra. It's very simple math. There were three notes, and now there's only two. We're leaving out whatever note was in the middle of all those inversions. All of a sudden, you've got something really musical happening, almost like bells. Here it is in D. Notice my hands have to do a slightly different technique. Let's try it on C minor. Check this out. This is beautiful. All of a sudden, you're thinking about mist and dark nights and some mystery, right? So this is the straddle technique. We call it a straddle because we're straddling the middle note. We're not playing it, okay? Now I want to use this example in a song. This is one of those techniques, again, I love giving you examples that are very simple to understand, but they radically change the way you play. Let's take the straddle technique now and play a song with it. To demonstrate this technique, I'm going to use a very simple song that only has three chords. G major, D major, and A minor. Name of the tune is Down in the Valley. It's an old American folk song. It's very simple, but it serves really well to demonstrate the straddle technique. Now, the first time I go through, I'm not going to play the straddle technique. I'll simply play the chords and sing the melody to give you an idea of the structure of the song. And then, for contrast, I'll open it up and use the straddle technique all the way up and down the keyboard to give you an idea how simple, yet how powerful this technique is. Okay, here's the first version, just the chords and the melody. Down in the valley so low, hang your head over, hear the wind blow. Hear the wind blow, dear, hear the wind blow. Hang your head over, hear the wind blow. Okay, now let's open it up into the straddle technique. One of the greatest things about the straddle technique is that you're not really confined to just playing up and down one octave like I showed you at first. You know, as great as that is, you can go a little lower, nice and low on the keyboard, and you've got a nice, rich sound down there without having to think real hard, which is great if you're a musician. Now, one other tidbit, if I was playing full chords and not straddling that middle note each time, and I kept going lower, if you get low, thick chords, sometimes it gets real muddy. But when you straddle things down there, all of a sudden, instead of being muddy, it's rich. Or you can go back and forth, right? Here it is on A minor, nice and low, or D. Remember, I'm simply playing up and down the keyboard anywhere I want and inverting whatever chord I'm playing and leaving out the middle note to create fantastic sounding straddles. Let's use this now in the song. Down in the valley's so low. Hang your head over, hear the wind blow. Hear the wind blow, dear, hear the wind blow. Hang your head over, hear the wind blow. I hope that inspires you. The straddle technique is pretty easy to grasp mentally. Sometimes it's hard to get your hands to make those particular movements, but it all comes down to practice, doesn't it? Always does. But in the next lesson, we're going to go even further. We're going to combine a technique that we learned in a previous lesson called slash chords. Maybe you remember that. With a technique of straddles that we learned in this lesson. And when you combine slash chords and straddles on the keyboard, an amazing thing happens. All of a sudden you start hearing sevenths and ninths and 11ths and 13ths come out in your playing. These higher chord extensions are usually reserved for those students that study for years and years and years, and I hope you do. But if you have the secret of combining slash chords and straddles, you can get to these fantastic chords right away with an understanding. That's the kind of stuff I love to hand off because people just suddenly come alive to music and they really get inspired. So stick around, we're going to do some more stuff. This is David Sprunger from PlayPianoTODAY.com. Thanks for listening.